Greetings, Thulians. Expert combat rules. Fortifications. You have rules for fortifications. Siege equipment. Ballistas, battering rams, boulders that you can throw on enemies. Catapults, bracketing of course. Fire arrows, fire bottles, ladders. Rope and grappling hook, siege towers, tourtoise formation. And of course sapping, that will be undermining. Some rules exactly for how you attack with ballistas and catapults. The details about each siege weapon, not least the ones that you actually use. And the funny thing is that, fire bottles, today we use mortars, right? To shoot things over walls and into the enemy area. In the past, they used slings for that, staff slings. And you can now do that using fire bottles. So you can throw incendiaries over the wall using a staff sling and set fire to buildings inside, which is not very popular with those inside, of course. Rules for, if you miss the target, how much do you miss? By how much? Moving equipment, and so forth. Cost for projectiles, how many siege weapons you can have. In each, for example, you can have, here it says 1, but this is the proof copy. You can have 4 siege weapons on the roof of a keep and 1 in each tower of a castle, yeah. Burning settlements and buildings, rules for that, how to put out fires if one of your own buildings have been set afire. And of course you can use spells for that too. You cast an ice bolt on a fire, it might reduce the rate of burning or even extinguish the fire. And then of course sieges, how many attackers and defenders do you need, how much food can each besiege settlement, store or keep castle. Blockades for disease outbreak, because there's an increased chance for a disease to break out if you are under siege because of reduced access to healing herbs and basic hygiene and such. And then of course you have the what influences the siege. And the siege progress will go up or down here, depending on all sorts of different factors. For example, if you had reinforcements intercepted, it's going to break your morale a little bit. If you have a keep in your settlement, if there was a disease, if you're blockaded, if the leader decides to just run away or something, that's not going to influence your morale very well. And you have racial adjustments. Dwarfs are very stubborn, elves take it easy, they're a little bit zen. Savages and orcs are not very patient, and of course mixed race armies is not good because they're going to be tension there, and that's not good for morale. Yes. Critical failures, during a siege, what can happen? Morale falters, you can have desertions, mutiny, civilian uprising, betrayal, because, someone might betray you. Critical failure for attacker, morale falters, desertion, and mutiny. So, and of course, the possible outcomes here. Unconditional surrender, conditional surrender, deceptive surrender, breakout, and so forth, yeah. And some information about orc movement, because they are not very fond of sunlight. Quick reference here, and a little bit about siege spells, because you can use these spells for effect during a siege. Not least the thunderclouds spell. Zap the attacking army. Supply trains, you have to supply your besieging armies. Rules for that. Looting, reference, just go to export treasures and blah blah blah. A supply train can also be set up to, if you want to keep a garrison in a hex, for example. If you have a mountain pass, for example, and you really don't want someone to get past there, garrison it. And if the garrison is too large, well, you have to, or too big, you have to supply it. Taking captives, rules for how, if a settlement surrender, how many can you capture and take as slaves? how you can take same race slaves and just turn them into serfs. That is, you give them freedom and you increase your own settlement population dramatically. They become serfs. Ransom offers, if you take captives and someone wants to ransom them. That is quite possible. Ransom for captives too. Not just you can pay ransom for the attacker to abandon the siege, right? There are rules for how an NPC will react to such an offer. And again, you can also ransom captives. You can recruit prisoners of war, hirelings, of course, and there are rules for that here. Next time I will talk about naval combat. Thank you for watching.